Hello everyone and welcome to Wowhead Weekly number 222. Welcome to the Shadowlands Alpha waiting room. We still don't know when it's going to be out, but there's a lot of things, or maybe not a lot of things, but some very interesting things to still speculate about, so it's definitely worth talking about. And there's also been some interesting classic updates as well, such as a PTR. What are we going to do with a PTR classic? So it's going to be quite a few interesting points to talk about today. Before we get into it though, let me first introduce myself. I am Annie, or also known as AnnieFuchsia. I'm a full-time streamer on Twitch and do a lot of random World of Warcraft things. Wowhead Weekly, I always do, with my amazing co-host, Perculia.
Hey everyone, I'm Perk. I run Wowhead, overseeing all the news and guides and site features, and I'm usually joined on this show by my wonderful baby cat, Brightpaw.
Aww.
And it's always really fun to do this show every week so we can keep you updated on what people are talking about on the site, what's popular, what's new, answer your questions. And we missed last week, but we've got some interesting alpha, speculation to discuss, this WoW Classic PTR, and even some Diablo news that was pretty hype, and it's like, how can maybe WoW learn from some of the things Diablo is announcing and communicating about? So I think most people are like, what is up with the Shadowlands Alpha waiting room? So I think we should discuss what we know or don't know about the Alpha first, as well as what would we like to see when the Alpha or Beta finally goes up.
Indeed. So first off, if you guys haven't done it, I believe there should be an option for you to opt in to potential invites to the beta/alpha in the future. So you can do that on your Battle.net site. The alpha, however, will be very, very restricted, most likely. Very exclusive to very few people. Alpha does mean that it's probably not going to have that much content, which also brings us to the topic of alpha for BFA, or beta even. But maybe we should take one thing at a time, though. Let's not jump too fast into the interesting topics. Let's not get too excited. But yeah, let's start with the recent thing that happened with these builds that we have seen, Perk.
Right. So Blizzard updated the launcher to support encrypted Shadowlands builds last Thursday evening, I believe. And then later Thursday evening, as well as Monday and Tuesday, Blizzard then released encrypted builds, so we're up to 3 of them. Now, people are like, oh, it's encrypted. That means that it's going to be available for everyone soon. But encrypted just means that we can't data mine it. It's sort of like a private build, and it's likely available to distribute among Blizzard employees, either to play for feedback, or if they work in different offices, maybe they're testing like different drivers, or they're testing it for localization things, or they're preparing, trying to get some polish. Maybe there'll be like an event somewhere, for a demo build like they did with 8.2. So we're more sophisticated now. I believe this has come up in the past with various, activity before something launched. We've talked about this with, vendor builds preceding 8.2 and 8.3. But because there's kind of a lull in 8.3 content, people are latching onto any sign of activity for Shadowlands Alpha. I swear, every day for the past 2 weeks, I get linked a tweet being like, this so-and-so says this is proof that the alpha is starting today for everyone. Oh my God, let's get ready. And I'm just sort of like, this feels like the boy that cries wolf after a while. So,
and all the people who were trolling on Discord too, changing their game to playing Shadowlands Alpha.
Oh, like me? Yeah.
Wait, did you do it too?
Yeah, everyone in the Wowhead channel did that.
I saw some people do it, and I was like, oh wow, how are they playing that? It's out already? Why wasn't I told?
So funny. But yeah, so if you aren't sure, encrypted means we can't data mine it. We've talked about encryption before. Usually it's used on a smaller scale for things like, a Storm Mount or the Sourfang quest line. And we've also posted about encrypted builds before. usually it hits like the WoW vendor server before players can actually access other PTRs like 8.2 or 8.3. So we do not have secret access to any Shadowlands thing. We're not sitting on any info. We're just watching this and we're reporting on it because we know if we don't report on it, people will ask us why we haven't covered the build yet. Because this is fairly public information. So that's why we make the posts letting you know that, Blizzard is working on this. The builds are getting more frequent, but we can't show you anything just quite yet.
Or maybe you guys are playing it without letting the rest of us know.
Exactly.
I think that's what's going on.
We have an NDA, but the NDA was so nice that they let us put on Discord that we are playing alpha.
True.
So that's the question. When do we think the alpha is going to hit, or even beta for this point? Because I have half a mind in thinking that alpha is just going to be like limited to the employees. I don't think it's going to hit super soon. Because remember, Ian has talked about in the past how it was a mistake for when BFA came up, they didn't have a lot of systems available to test. Like Azerite was only available several months in. And I'm concerned that if they just dump this alpha without many preview blogs or like incomplete data mining or, level they're testing one aspect, but not all the Covenant abilities are in, that people will get the wrong impression, and that will hurt, PR presenting an incomplete version of the game again. So that's why I don't. And then this week there's also PAX East, and I know people from Blizzard are traveling there. So I honestly think it's going to be sometime in March and not like March 1st, because usually Blizzard does a build up. Like in Legion, when they did big class revamps, they had a series of blogs talking about the fantasy of each class.
Was this building onto BFA?
No, this is before Legion beta.
For Legion, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and they had 12 blogs, and after the 12 blogs were released, then the data mining started. And we've seen with 8.2, there was, a fan site summit, and then there was a hour-long video, and then a week after that, data mining started. With 8.3, we had Ian dropping a very comprehensive video explaining corruption, and then that, then the PTR opened the same day as the data mining. So I feel that Blizzard, it would not be in their best interest to just, open up the data mining and having a bunch of abilities without context, especially with how, raked over the coals BFA has been about, Azerite and class design. I think that they'd want to be very polished, and Brightpaw agrees.
And there is quite a lot to do with classes this time as well, with all the abilities that are coming back. And it seems like having that kind of the blogs on class insights actually sounds very, very relevant for this.
Or a blog on each covenant that lists all the abilities, because I know there was a lot of concern that, will one covenant be better than another? What are the unique class abilities I get? How will the followers interact with this? And I think that if you just have people playing at level 50, whatever the equivalent of 120 is, and it's like locked to one level or one zone, or you don't have a full understanding of the abilities, people are going to say, oh, this isn't fun. Oh, this feels like I'm less powerful again. And those are perceptions Blizzard is really trying to push back on.
Yep.
So I think that there's still a build up. Like, I don't think that we're going to get off the show and Alpha's going to start. I think that there still is going to be a media build up, reintroducing the concepts of Shadowlands. Maybe some websites will highlight Covenant abilities, like I I think, well, not PC Gamer. There was a Game Informer. Game Informer released like all the Death Knight abilities in December, so I feel we're gonna see more of that over the next few weeks, and maybe like mid-March we'll get a controlled look at alpha or even beta at this point that has like a system that's ready to test versus, oh, we rushed to get this out, but everything is like, you know, broken and you know half the abilities aren't in, because people love people, but even if the first build isn't the most complete, that's the build that gets the most attention as far as, you know, streaming or website coverage. So like first impressions are really important in this age of, you know, easily accessible information and streamers.
It's like Warcraft 3.
So
like they're gonna have to do so good for the bad PR to turn into positive. Like they're gonna have to outperform the expectations in the first place. Whereas before there was a certain amount of expectation, and that's it. Now they have to outperform it to make it have the opposite PR response.
Right, especially because at BlizzCon the build was very, very limited. Remember, it was like 2 quests in Bastion,
so very small zone.
Right, so I feel like they're going to need to expand things to push back against that stereotype, because you don't want the stereotype of, oh, this is really similar to the, you know, BlizzCon build. Blizzard is behind on Shadowlands.
Yeah.
But that also brings the question up. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna ask something, but now I forgot what. Oh yeah, I was gonna ask about the timing for alpha/beta for BFA, if you remember.
Yeah, so I remember the data mining started at the very end of January. I want to say it was as soon as the pre-orders open. Like you could get the pre-orders, you could get your allied race, and then a few days after the data mining started. But it wasn't playable for another few weeks, and there was a lot of confusion in there where some people were like posting unfinished, you know, data mine screenshots of the, you know, battle for Undercity. And that's another thing I think Blizzard's going to crack down on more, what major story beats can actually be data mined in advance. Like they wanted to really hide Sourfang, and they seemed a little regretful that the ny'alotha cutscene was out there in advance. So I think that they might try to keep some of the major story beats under wraps and just try to have more focused testing on actual systems this time. Which brings me to the question of, I mean, you have streamers that are, you know, very invested, obviously, in testing and creating content and sharing their opinions. But as we saw with Warcraft 3, there wasn't really a lot of testing going on, and everyone seemed surprised and kind of outraged when they realized a few months after beta that, you know, the cinematics weren't the same or things were missing. And it's like, how do you get your average player that is going to play the expansion but you know, is not playing WoW as a full-time job, how do you get them testing and providing feedback? So I think we might have discussed it in the past, even with Ratnos, like how do you get these people reacting to things on the PTR? Like, do you incentivize things? Like, you know, do you give them a mini pet or something like that? Because I feel that they're going to need a wide range of opinions from people that have all sorts of accessibility and scheduling for WoW, not just people that are, you know, playing it as entertainment for hours in front of people, but someone that, you know, only has like 1 day a week to play, or, you know, logs on to do their dailies, but they've been doing that for 15 years.
Do you think there was a problem of lack of testers?
I do think so, especially because when people are getting older, they're not just testing as much for fun, or the way the game cycle is. WoW isn't this game that you play religiously every week. You know, some people may subscribe for the patch and then unsubscribe, and then, you know, for example, it's like, oh, Animal you know, Crossing is out, or like, oh my god, you know, the PAX East announcement, I'm gonna get back into this other game. There's this cycle of always picking a new game up to play for a few weeks, while in the past people might be more inclined to try out something on the PTR. And yeah, I just feel that
So just more
Yeah.
more trendy games and everything being available
Yeah.
compared to a long time ago.
Right. And I do think that, the testing streamers do is valuable. It's just that it's very different than how people play that are older that don't have as much time to play WoW. Like, you sort of have like professional content creators that have all the time in the world, and then you have people that do not have nearly as much time to approach the game, that don't have a monetization component. And it's just very different. Or it's like, what happened, like, how does this game feel if you don't have chat helping you do a quest, or have a chat or a Discord of people helping you put together a group for something? So I think that they do need different perspectives, testing as well, because it's a really old game. You have a very wide audience.
Do they consider people who have been in previous ones and given a lot of feedback to maybe prioritize those people to be invited?
I mean, I don't know it for sure. Anecdotally, I've heard in the past, when Blizzard opens up waves, a lot of people will be like, "Oh, I heard everyone that got a Mythic Argus kill that wasn't flagged got in this week." So
Gotcha.
it seems that they try to prioritize people that are dedicated to the game in certain ways. But there's still the question of, well, why would this person want to test a PTR for free? When they have limited hours, and they could be working overtime, or have like a side hustle, second job, or have a kid, or taking care of parents. Time is a luxury. So I feel like maybe they need to think of incentives to get people testing this on the PTR, so we don't have a shock like Warcraft 3, where only the hardcore people bothered testing it nonstop, and then when the game came out, everyone was surprised that it was missing stuff. And it's like, well, yeah, it's been that way on the PTR for a while. Just who is the patience though to play through every campaign?
Yeah,
if you're just like casual that is a fan of the game.
Was the PTR, or was it a PTR or a beta, or what was it for Warcraft 2?
I think technically it was a beta, but it's like like there was a test. There was a test realm, and a lot.
Was it available to everyone?
Not everyone, but I believe a lot of people were in it. And I think if you purchased the Spoils of War, you got access, or you're prioritized for access.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm just concerned that
they need to
test
a very legitimate concern.
Yeah, yeah, especially with a lot of these changes being related to leveling or the flow. A lot of people that might be leveling have taken a break, and those are the people you want testing, not the people that know the zones with their eyes closed, or just like, oh cool, I get to like make a video speed leveling to share on my Twitch, whatever. You want people that how do you get the people that hate leveling to test leveling in Shadowlands beta? Because like those are the people that you need to get their opinion, so if the changes have worked or not.
Because there's like
and
two
those people
sides
are not going to do it
well.
for free. Yeah,
like there's one side which is wondering, or which is the question of if people who do something on the test realms will be rewarded with some kind of some type of incentive. But then there's also the question of, what about the idea of making it exclusive in the first place? Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Because making it exclusive means that you may have missed out on people who would have put in all that time. But I don't know if it's kept exclusive, because it also in a way generates a bit of hype in a way. It feels special that people post like, oh my god, I got into the beta, but do they actually play it?
Right. So I could see I just saw this, it's not in the notes, but I could see the Shadowlands alpha beta going similar to what they did with WoW Classic, where they didn't do things like in the past where they gave out beta keys for sites and streamers to give out, but they had the all access days where they asked people to test okay, anyone can level from 1 to 20 regardless of an invite, or anyone can play AV on a pre-made. I don't think that particular testing went very well based on the AV imbalance issues, but I could see them doing more of that type of thing where they maybe when 8.3 is pretty dull, they'll open up a testing
Certain
weekend
time slots
for everyone. And everyone can, like, maybe they test leveling in Eastern Kingdoms one weekend, or they run through the leveling zones, and then finally they have a weekend where everyone gets to level in Shadowlands, and they try to build hype up to that.
Maybe if you finish certain quest lines, you get a transmog on the real game.
Ooh, that would be cool.
Something that doesn't really benefit people in the real game, so it's not like you're gaining something that other people will be in disadvantage for, but just something fun. But then maybe this has to be possible to do for everyone at some point, so people don't feel like, well, it's not my fault, I wasn't invited. But yeah, I guess the classic beta was done in a decent way in that case, having that exclusive thing, but including most streamers, so at least people could watch gameplay, even if they couldn't play. And at the same time, they had those short windows of where everyone could play.
I also remember for the first stress test, and I think maybe other times, they would, they had really clever ways of testing new tech. Like they had the NPCs that were called, like sharding, like the Omar NPC with the minions following them around, just like funny stuff that was actually testing underlying tech issues. And then they would do funny things like spawn, Ragnaros or Onyxia, and that's stuff that gets a lot of people on a server, and it's fun and new to experience, but it also helps them test server load. So maybe they would have some
spells on it.
Yeah, maybe they would have like funny events on these open servers to encourage people to go on, if any, just for the lulls, or like, oh, like, look, Sylvanas is fighting Tyrande and Stormwind. Like Thanos is dead. Stuff like that.
Honestly, those moments were so successful. People loved it. Everyone were talking about it, and everyone wanted to be a part of it, trying to find the right shard to see the things, and asking each other what people see on their shards, because there would be different things on different shards too. So that was actually a really cool experience, which makes you wonder if that's also a good thing to try and recreate with new expansions too. Just play around with things.
Yeah, it's also similar to how Blizzard has handled other games. Like, I think with Overwatch or other games, they just, flag you with access through your account or the launcher. They don't really do things with keys, and they have special weekends come up. So, I mean, maybe Blizzard is moving towards that direction. I personally like giving away beta keys. We try to do things in fun ways, but if it moves towards a different system, we'll try to do something fun to have exploration events like we did with WoW Classic. I remember our shard stayed up, so we had a fun time following Omar around in the Wowhead group.
Yeah, I remember I had trouble logging in sometimes, and you guys were already in, so that was nice to see. Lucky
so,
you.
Yeah, so what exactly do we hope to see when Shadowlands goes up? Like, what do you think would be really good for people to test and preview to put, like, really good first impressions?
I think first of all, the abilities that we get from the different covenants, I think would be useful to try out and test for everyone, and probably seeing the zones for the new covenant areas too, and then of course the big overhaul of leveling being redone. So going back to see where your alts and characters fit in different places. Like if you're level 30, what does that mean? Where do you belong? Yeah, I think leveling is probably the biggest thing. And then in terms of max content things, it would be checking out the covenants and those abilities. And, or I guess just all abilities in general. Some old abilities are coming back, see how those go together and see how the classes feel. What else were you thinking?
So I think that I would be okay if they didn't do the max level stuff right away to give it its own like fanfare and content attached to it. But I think that the leveling is definitely important. And if all the zones aren't open at the start of beta, at least try to have like a blog for each covenant describing what you would get at the end, so it feels you know,
So you see what to
less
expect.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you say, oh, you know, like level cap is going to be 52, it's like, okay, but like, how do I get my follower? It isn't the follower that I've befriended meant to give me more abilities. And, you know, what's this tech tree that I unlock? So I think that I would prefer there also being a series of blogs leading up to the data mining, because if we have this sea of abilities, data mining can't tell you, you know, do you pick ability 1 or 2, or do you get all of them? And I think that having the blogs explaining things is pretty important, because the demo at BlizzCon was so limited. We couldn't, you know, explain what the UI was like or how things worked. You know, there was very little to transcribe and take pictures of.
Mm-hmm. I actually completely agree with that, because it reminds me a little bit of BFA as well, like the Azart system. Everyone were clueless about it. Like, how does it work? How is it going to look?
Yeah.
How am I supposed to use the different abilities? And we didn't even get them until super late. And at that point, maybe feedback was too late.
That was in April.
Yeah,
I remember. Yeah.
And I think even then there were some changes going on after that. So we never really had a final version that we could play around with. And I think that kind of also what led to the bit of mess in this expansion of systems being introduced late and just kind of covering each other. You have one initial system, and then there's another system that's on top of that, and then another system on top of that, with that being corruption, for example. And the legendary cloak, of course.
Yeah, I think that at least with corruption, they had that early to test on the PTR, but the confusion with corruption was that a lot of stuff would change every week, and I don't know if Blizzard was busy, but they didn't really do their blue post trying to walk people through and asking for feedback on certain things. So you had a lot of people that, you know, would tune in week 1 to corruption that didn't know what had changed, you know, a few weeks later in the PTR, and it wasn't really documented. So people were giving, you know, feedback on old things Wowhead had posted, and you know, people like analyzing you know, these documented notes, and it felt a bit, do they want to keep it hidden because they just want people's gut reaction to things? You know, well, no one's really testing corruption over Thanksgiving or Christmas break. They're with their families.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that reminding people about the systems and getting feedback on all these systems early and is, you know, is definitely important.
Yeah.
Or like when they announced essences, like I think you need like a dev presentation on covenants just to remind people and go more in depth than the BlizzCon presentation, because, you know, like BlizzCon, like, it's very hype, but then you look back and you're like, well, we still don't really know what's going on. We know that each class, we know that poisons are back from, you know, for rogues, and, you know, Bastion has owls, but that's not really enough to start having feedback opinions on.
And I think it's also nice to keep a red thread going for the entire expansion. I think corruption being at the end patch actually makes sense story-wise, so that's okay.
Yeah.
But, you know, randomly having a legendary cloak, whereas maybe there were some people who had Titan Forged Max and had a socket on their back piece, which is now useless. So maybe the whole expansion should have been around, you know, not really having a back piece, or having a back piece that evolved during the whole expansion. You get it in 8.1. and it's first epic, and then it becomes legendary in 8.3 or something. So, you know, you don't feel like you had something and now it's just thrown away, it's useless within the same expansion. And I think if things are tested earlier, then I think it's easier to put those things together, so it feels like a natural transition.
Yeah, this reminds me of the conversation we had with Dratnos about corruption, how you know, like the hardcore people were testing corruption on the PTR, but for a lot of people that are more casual, it doesn't feel good if you have like limited access to corruption. And we were discussing ways that, you know, maybe there could be like ways, if you're doing the quest line, like ways to have ways to feel less bad if you don't get your ideal corruption, other ways to like introduce it to have a few guaranteed pieces. And that's the type of feedback I think that it's important to have, you know, with Shadowlands. Like, you know, does this feel good if you don't have a billion hours to test this feature? Does it still feel fun and exciting?
Yeah, like how does it feel being an unlucky player? And if you are an unlucky player, what can you do to work towards it? Because I think having RNG is okay, but I think there should be a separate system which helps people be able to work towards something even if they're unlucky. So I don't know, maybe get corrupted fragments if you don't get a corrupted item. And then if you have X amount of corrupted fragments, you put them together and now you have a corrupted effect that you could put on a piece of gear.
And you definitely need a wide range of people, because if Blizzard has hinted they want to take the patch, themed gear nature of corruption, apply that maybe in the future, you're going to have more intricate systems to test, but you're also going to have that on top of the leveling changes and then Torghast and everything else. So it's like, how many things can one person test when they have other, games to play and things to do? So that's why I think you definitely need something like all access weekends or other incentives just to make sure that all the systems are being tested, an appropriate amount of time. This also reminds me, I mean, it's obviously leveling is very different than Mythic N'Zoth, but, Ian admitted in that World First interview that, things have changed with streaming and there's always been bugs, but now when everyone is watching something, like every bug is sort of blown up and seems like a bigger deal. So, then he also was like, oh, we don't really test the end boss as much. Maybe we should have different communication in the future or test it differently. I think that
maybe it was unnoticed before, but now it's going to be noticed, so they need to test it more.
Or it's like, Blizzard has broken leveling in Shadowlands. Like, you don't want, there's, when you're totally redoing like the world, there's lots of opportunities for bugs. And, I'm sure Cataclysm had bugs, but it's just a different beast now. With streaming and how people just like, bugs or fails as entertainment now. So I think they really need to make sure that every part of the game is tested evenly. Because even remember with Warlords, like the starters, the first quest had the bottleneck and people totally lost their minds. And I just feel like there's more opportunity for things to go wrong, obviously, when you're trying
too, right? Everyone got stuck on the helicopters.
In
Jade Forest.
And like now you'd have 1 billion reaction videos to the bug, which, it's kind of sad, but that's just how things are now.
I mean, it's good. It means that we get to have better fixed games, hopefully. Hopefully. Focus on that. There was something else I was going to comment, but I forgot what it was. You can go ahead with your thought process. If you
I think that was just about it with Shadowlands. If people have any questions, you can, let us go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, now that we talked about this a little bit more, so at first I was like, I think it's going to be really late because judging by BlizzCon, there wasn't that much already, and it's probably better if there's more things working. So maybe we're looking at least a month from now. But considering that leveling is such a huge deal, I think even if nothing else is ready, they should open up alpha or beta to at least have people start testing the leveling already.
I wonder if they would do like leveling and then do fanfare when the Shadowland zones open up later.
Exactly,
so,
like they don't even
the
have
leveling
to open
testing
those
isn't over. I could see that, especially because they made it seem like the pre-patch was going to be like earlier or longer than past pre-patch events and have it be more of like a Wrath invasion type thing.
Did they say that, or is that what we're speculating?
I think they said it was going to be like the Wrath event, like it was more of an event as opposed to like a little thing. And the pre-patch, that's when they have all the systems changes, which would be the level squish. So they need to get that moving along if that is coming earlier than stuff like Torghast and Covenants.
Hopefully we can see the leveling very soon at the least. If not anything else, it's good to start testing that.
So I think that's all we have with Shadowlands information for now. You can definitely ask us questions about speculating. I think this is my Mist, Warlords, Legion, BFA. This will be my 5th alpha experience with Wowhead.
Cool.
So I can probably answer questions on how like past things have gone. But we also have got some interesting classic and even some live news that kind of feeds into this Shadowlands date speculation. So we can talk about that a bit. If people have questions, drop them in the chat. We can, answer them too.
I feel like a very nice transition would actually be to go straight into PTR for Classic.
Okay, yeah, let's do that.
Since we're talking about test realms. So now we're gonna have, are we going to have, or is it already there?
So there's no statement by Blizzard, but the WoW Classic PTR branch was created, and there is a realm up, I believe. We can't actually access it, but it's a thing.
Okay, so it's there. WoW Classic PTR. Now the question is, why?
Right. So Blizzard has not said anything, so take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. But I've seen two basically ideas. One is that they want to test something like the AQ gates, because they don't want that to be laggy and a disaster, especially on popular realms. And they need to start testing, hardware, the servers. And the second thing was that, hey, maybe Blizzard's moving away from no changes, and they need a place to start testing some of these things. I think it would be more with AQ. And a third thing I've heard is that to sort of help with the accuracy and get people testing bugs in advance on Blizzard servers versus private servers. For example, if people were practicing Blackwing Lair, they couldn't run it on a PTR. They would use a non-Blizzard place to practice their, Blackwing Lair speedruns. So if there is a PTR, then it keeps everything all together.
And then servers, yeah.
Right. And then I know there's like a lot of confusion sometimes where people don't know if a recipe is coming in a certain patch, and it's like a guessing game. And if there was a PTR, people could more accurately plan in advance what exactly is coming, which I don't think is the main impact of it. But I know our guide writers would really appreciate that, because there have been like some inconsistencies. For example, going by Blizzard's old idea, we would think Sunken Temple quest would have been in Phase 4, but they were actually in Phase 3. Or some recipes that were added in patch 1.9 were available at launch, but then like Thorium Brotherhood recipes added in 1.6 were added in Phase 3. So it's really hard to predict things in advance, and having a PTR would help with like theory crafting and knowing exactly what to plan, which I know people love doing with their best in slot list in WoW Classic.
So people can see what is up and what's going on soon. Is there any possibility that it's just a sort of name placeholder for Shadowlands?
I don't think so. Because like in the launcher, it's definitely like, PTR World of Warcraft Classic in development.
I see it.
And I don't think they would pull names like that. Plus, like you said, we have the Encrypted Shadowlands branch, which has different naming already. So, yeah.
Gotcha. Just asking the questions that maybe some other people have too. Since we're sitting here with...
No, it's good to know. Like, you sort of wonder like if Blizzard is playing like 3-dimensional chess reveal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, I think that's it in terms of my questions on this WoW Classic PTR. If you guys have any questions in the chat, feel free to type them out. I'm sure Perk will be able to answer most of them.
Yeah.
Sometimes with a tinfoil hat, but most of the time with a straight answer. But yeah, for now we don't know... Oh, I just got a Windows thing. For now, we don't really know any further information on it, when it's going to be available or what's going to be on it. But... oh, that's an interesting question, actually. Which one do you think will come first? Shadowlands Alpha or WoW Classic PTR?
I almost think WoW Classic PTR, just because, Blackwing Lair is out in the earnings call. They were talking about WoW Classic keeping people busy until Shadowlands came out. And, having a PTR would certainly keep people busy. And also there's something else I was going to say about the no, yeah, but basically just that the earnings call made it seem that the content was going to be coming out pretty frequently for Classic. And then today, it seemed kind of random, but Blizzard made a post for people unfamiliar with WoW Classic. And it seemed kind of odd because it seemed like that would be better suited for launch, but I'm like, well, maybe are they hoping for another influx of people? Are they doing another marketing push? You know, they're reminding people about realm types, the races you can play, the class roles.
Wait,
and
in what
that
form was this?
Just today, a few hours ago.
Like just as a general article about how to
Classic,
just
basically? Like a
okay.
Yeah, it just was like, you know, if you're unfamiliar with WoW Classic, this is what all the realms mean. You know, this is what like a rogue is. Yeah, so it sounds like maybe they're gonna try to do another push for Classic, and that's what all the people can do that don't have access to Shadowlands. So maybe, you know, they would like announce phase 4 and open up PTR, and then you know, then have Shadowlands be like a week after that.
Maybe new people who are not subbed will then play the PTR and end up actually subbing to play the real game, you know, because PTR is just PTR. That's interesting.
Right.
Give people like a free access in a way, but not to the real game.
Which sort of brings up another topic we wanted to discuss that also came up today. The WoW token was being introduced in WoW Classic in China. And Blizzard was adamant at WoW Classic launch that the token would not be available on WoW Classic realms. Yes, you could, you know, use the token on BFA servers to get your game time, and that would apply to Classic, but you could not actually acquire the token with gold on WoW Classic. But according to this Chinese translation, it's coming just to the Chinese region. So I really think it's not coming to NA or EU servers because there's a lot of different things between the Western MMO market and how China handles it. Like, it's also, I mean, like, you go to an internet cafe, you pay by the hour. I know even back in MOP, like, some of the item levels of gear work differently. It's just set up
like they're more used to pay to win, right? Compared to a lot of the Western games. Or a lot of the way that we play the games in the Western world.
Yeah, and like a lot of games that are very popular in China aren't necessarily as popular in the West, and vice versa. So I don't think this is coming to to Western things. Remember, there was the experience potion that popped up on the PTR, and you could pay, and that only made it to China. Probably because you can only, you know, if you're at an internet cafe, you could maybe pay for a potion for the duration of your time. And that never made it to the West, but people were
Does that still exist
very
over
concerned.
There?
I'm not exactly familiar. You know, when I was visiting China, it would have been cool to like go to one of these places and just like see how someone plays WoW, but I didn't think of that at the time. I just was, I don't know, watching cats.
But yeah, that's interesting. So they can basically buy experience potions, and I think their whole game works different, right? Like, aren't they like they don't have a monthly subscription?
Or do I think it does work different. Yeah, and like it's very popular. Like, you go to a cafe and then like you pay like hourly to have access to something.
Like not just the computer, but actually the WoW account too, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think this will be coming to other regions, but I do think it would be useful for Blizzard to release a statement on this PTR as well as what's going on with the WoW token, because right now everyone's just running the China statement through Google Translate, and you know, something more official would be good.
I think what do you think about the WoW token if it would be introduced into the game that we're playing over here?
I mean, I think it would be weird, especially for PR, because it's like literally in the FAQ that it's not coming. And I do feel that like a lot of people, now that the novelty has worn off with Classic, do swap between both games, and it's easier to make gold on retail. And if, you know, they find Classic boring or the PvP is frustrating, they will swap to, you know, 8.3 to have a different experience, and then they don't like the RNG of 8.3, so they go back to Classic. So
exactly, it's actually nice that they differ in that way.
Yeah,
because it's like
I'm okay keeping the token on retail. I also think it'd be really confusing for the economy, and like there would be all sorts of weird things if it's like, okay, so I'm going to like stockpile tokens on Classic and then sell them on retail because like the exchange rate is better there. I'm not sure how that would work.
Yeah. Like, the exchange rate is so good this month. I need to now transfer over. And then the next month, like, oh, I need to transfer it all back. Now it's better the other way around.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be coming. And if it is, we should definitely have some blog posts on this, because that would be very important.
I'm not sure if I'm just not playing enough Classic, but I feel like the only good thing that I find with WoW tokens in general is that it kills the like the gold selling market. I don't know
that's
how
what
bad...
they gave. That's what they gave, I think, in Google Translate. They were saying that, you know, gold selling is a problem in WoW Classic, and they hope that this helps with security, as well as people getting this through Blizzard as opposed to you know, a third party.
Because I feel like that's the only positive of it, with retail too. If it wasn't for the gold selling systems, then I wouldn't have liked it in retail either. But because of that, it does feel cleaner and nicer to have that, rather than people selling gold back and forth, hacking accounts to take the gold to then sell it, and, you know, things like that. But with Classic and no changes, and farming gold being such a central gameplay of Classic, it feels like a WoW token would destroy that a lot. Little things like farming for consumables for raid is a big part of the gameplay of Classic, so I feel like it would ruin the gameplay for a lot of people, feeling like the idea of farming isn't worth it because, well, this person had $10 spare.
Especially on PvP servers, it's like, oh, you know, I'm on a PvP server, and instead of like learning how to protect myself or gear up, I'm just going to, you know, make gold through the WoW token and buy my consumables from the auction house, as opposed to having to, you know, go out to the dangerous area.
Yeah, to farm for it, right? Because there's a lot of things like flying mounts not existing is nice, because it forces people to be down on the ground while they're doing their herbing or mining or whatever else they want to farm. So I think a WoW token would be very damaging in that sense. I have not noticed gold selling being really bad in Classic, so I wouldn't even say it's needed right now. And I think what can be done at the moment, I might be completely wrong, maybe I don't read the general chats enough to realize it's actually really bad right now, but I feel like just getting down to finding those people who are selling gold is probably better than introducing WoW tokens.
Yeah, I mean, I do know that if you do a search on, you know, some places like Google Trends, and you look for related terms for WoW Classic, you know, gold selling is always up there. And if you, even if you like try to Google for ways to make gold, like if you're like, oh, where's the Wowhead guide on, you know, where to farm linen, a lot of these gold selling sites will pop up above actual advice on how to play the game.
Because they pay for the position, I guess.
Yeah, or because it's, you know, it's, I guess there are enough people willing to do this. So, you know, when you click on something, Google's like, oh, like, this is the important one. Let's keep placing it higher. Everyone likes this. So it's this, you know, kind of vicious cycle of things.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, is it that hard to track down where the gold is coming from? I mean, I guess what these people do is they just keep creating new accounts and keep moving the gold around. I don't know, but
I mean, Blizzard doesn't usually report on things like you know, ban waves for gold farmers. They'll report on if people are like, you know, like, you know, there's like a mass exploit related to war fronts or islands, but they don't usually post like, oh, you know, we banned so and so gold farmers today.
Because I feel like it should be easier to monitor these type of things, especially if it's to the point where so much gold is being transferred around that there's websites out there, like not just a website but multiple. Then surely it feels like there should be a way to track those down, but I guess it's a lot harder than it seems. I don't know. Or it's not cared about enough. I don't know. It's
you know,
my headset just died. You can keep talking, but I can't hear you.
Oh no, I just was saying that it, you know, it really does affect the integrity and core of the game. Is your headset easy to fix? Oh, you can't actually hear me. But yeah, let me know when it's fixed. I'll type. But yeah, we were about to wrap up. Hey, I was just saying that we were about to wrap up the WoW Classic part and discuss some live news again, going back to speculation about when the Shadowlands alpha could be hitting based on this live news, and then wrap things up with Diablo.
Yeah.
So the news. 8.3 news is that well, you'll probably experienced it. That coalescing visions are easier to get, and the legendary cloak requirements for 13, 14, 15 are easier to do as well.
Isn't it from 9 even?
Oh yeah, I just remember that the recent I think it's 7 to 9 and then 13 to 15 is changed.
Okay.
And
so what changed with the 13 plus one?
Basically they halved the torn pages requirements.
Okay.
So taking, fewer runs. And the timing is interesting on this because I remember after the first month of patch 8.3, a lot of people were like, okay, I resubbed one more month to get my legendary cloak, and like, oh my god, I have so many runs to do. I think because rank 10 or 11 was the killer. And this makes you wonder, is Blizzard trying to... Do they realize that, hey, maybe the requirements were too steep? We're seeing a lot of people want to, BFA's done. They don't want to continue, so they are, lowering things more than they expected in the hopes of getting people to subscribe for a second month as opposed to, giving up and being like, this is too much to do, I'm done.
I think also from a perspective of reading the quest and doing the visions, for me, it felt a little bit like a disconnection that I needed 4 of the pages. And let's say I killed 3 of the bosses, but I only got 2 of the items. That in itself felt like something that's not intuitive. I have to realize, like, oh, it's max 2. Can I kill whichever 2 bosses I want to? Is it 2 specific ones that are giving me the items? So I think maybe to also make it a little bit more streamlined, they made this change. In case you're not aware of the change is that there's no longer a limit of how many pages you can get per run. So if you do indeed go and kill 4 bosses, you will get the 4 pages in one go, meaning you're using 1 vessel instead of 2.
Also, the cap on vessels is gone, so you can carry more than 5.
Yes.
If whatever, if for some reason you don't use all your runs up in 1 week, but you keep doing, the quest to get them, you can stockpile them and then do a bunch. And I feel like I heard a lot of feedback that people do want to do horrific visions, that they're fun, and they felt limited by the number of vessels they could get. And I think even people were practicing them on the PTR, and that's when Blizzard disabled that at some point because they wanted people to do it on live servers. But clearly people like this in the style of the Mage Tower and want to keep running it more frequently. So I think it's good that they are easier to get, and you can stockpile them now more than before.
But specifically, not stackable still, though, right? They're still taking a lot of backspace. So yeah, the difference is that you're gaining more of the coalescing visions, and which means you can buy more vessels. The cap of 5 is gone, and to progress the quests for the cloak rank ups or upgrades can be done in fewer runs, because now you get a page for every boss you kill and not max 2 per run. It's increased in all the different
rank 13, 14,
areas.
15, the quest requires 4 instead of 6, 6 instead of 12, 8 instead of 18.
Oh, that's a big difference.
And then for 7 to 11, up to 4 torn pages can drop up from a maximum of 2. So those are some changes. Can drop from
maximum 2?
So up to 4 pages can drop per objective when you're on the rank 7 to 11 quest line, as opposed to maximum of 2. So they've
instead of maximum of 2. Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, that means that you can afford more horrific visions without feeling bad if you're failing. So go ahead and do them on alts or do them for some test runs, you should have plenty extra now compared to before.
Yep. And I see we have Bright Paw back, and that's why there's some wire noises.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for our final topic, there was some interesting Diablo news, and we'll cover it briefly, but I think we're also curious, like, people seem very excited about these topics, and would that style of communication or content work to hype up WoW? So the first thing that came out is, well, the more recent thing that came out was a quarterly update on Diablo 4. And in this update, they shared, it was a double header, they shared a bunch of UI changes made since the BlizzCon demo feedback, and some prototypes for a couch co-op UI, as well as the controller UI. And then they also talked more about the variety in monsters coming to Diablo 4, and they introduced the new cannibal family with some concept art we didn't see before. And they plan doing one of these mega blogs every quarter. And that makes me wonder, would people appreciate that sort of content when it comes to WoW? I guess Blizzard was doing that, with their 8.2 dev updates or 8.3 YouTube video. But I think that having some deep dive blogs on things like Shadowlands would be good as well, getting into the nitty gritty for people that like it. I thought that the Diablo blog was great. I don't know if you read it, but I thought it had a lot of good details, and it could have covered even more things, but it was nice to get a look behind the scenes at, hey, we're still making progress on this. It's not done yet, but here is, like a work in progress. I think it could be good to help, sort of draw the curtain back as to what Blizzard is working on. So, manage expectations, introduce people to the idea that, yeah, we're working on covenants. They're not done yet, but here's some ideas. And yeah, I think that would be a good thing if Blizzard would do more deep dives. I know they've moved away from that in recent years. Like, I remember Ghostcrawler did the dev water coolers. I know they moved away, to be like, videos or interviews, or just letting, streamers explore things on a PTR. But, WoW's got an old audience. It's as old as Diablo. They like to read,
It's
give
true.
us
They do like
long
to
blog.
read. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very true. I mean, obviously not everyone out there. So if you feel targeted by this not being true, I do think a lot of people who play a lot of WoW like reading a lot. Whenever there's any news, if people are
just not the quest text.
No, not quest texts. I mean, I admit I skip those too. But let's say I'm on the train, traveling to or from school or work. Something that I would do years ago even was, check out what's new. Let's see if there's been any new updates today on anything. You check Wowhead, or maybe some other sites, or maybe multiple sites. You read one site, then you're going to read another one to make sure you didn't miss anything. You just read everything. Because it's nice to read about the game if you can't play it. And even
a lot of people, like we're saying, you're older, you're at work now, you want to, I don't know, maybe you'll read about the game during your lunch break. If you can't log on and play it, but you can read about it.
Yeah. When I spent some months in Spain years ago, I couldn't play the game. I still read the news about WoW. I still read whatever came out just to, keep up with it. And then I'm sitting there being sad that I can't get the legendary staff. This was back in Cataclysm. Because I'm not playing. So, it's I think it's definitely true that a lot of people who are not playing are up for reading whatever is new because it's interesting.
Yeah. And then the second bit of news, which got even more hype when we shared it over the weekend, was more details that Diablo anime could be in the work on Netflix, as well as an Overwatch cartoon. And people were very excited about this. And then, of course, the parallels are made, you've got a Diablo series versus, and, Netflix also did Castlevania, which I think was really well received, as well as The Witcher, versus the Warcraft movie, which was kind of out of Blizzard's control. The date kept changing. It felt very expensive. It didn't do super well in the US, even though it was popular in China. Based on what the director said, it seemed like his vision wasn't fully realized. Like a lot of the slower bits were cut, like the marketing was a bit off. And it makes me think, wouldn't it be cool if Blizzard could, I don't know, do shorter WoW series on Netflix, because that could give them the, each season could cover a different story arc, and that could give them more time to explain something like, the fall of Arthas, or something like Jaina, where you follow one character's arc through a few episodes, as opposed to bombarding people with some messy event like the Stormwind war. So I think that would be interesting, especially because Blizzard cinematics are getting more and more advanced. And then in addition to the cinematics, they always do something like the Harbingers, or Warbringers in that 2D animated style. And that would be cool to even have like a mini series on Netflix as well, with that style.
That would be so cool. Yeah, because the series could be really short, like maybe 5-6 episodes per series, which covers a main character's story arc of some sort. I think that could end up really well, and I'm always very, very happy to read about, or not read about, but to see how games become series. Like it reminds me of Witcher 3, for example, or Witcher.
I mean, that did so well when they released the show, and then people actually logged on and played the game. Like,
oh yeah,
they had record concurrence. So
yeah. They beat the numbers from the release, which used to be the highest number. So they actually like the arc or the graph went down with how many people are playing it, and it suddenly went up again to be higher than the initial when the series came out, and that's insane.
Yeah, and I just think that the miniseries format works better for video games, and that Netflix has had some success with this, than trying to do, this gigantic blockbuster.
Yeah, it shouldn't be long dragged out. It should be to the point, kind of short. Witcher series was also pretty short. I think it was only like 8 episodes.
It was like 8 episodes. I mean, like, and that's the thing, like I think that with a miniseries, you actually have more time to develop a story versus a 2-hour film. But the expectations with a miniseries that everything is an hour long, so it feels shorter, that you can watch it in bursts. Versus, when a film is over 2 hours, it's like, oh my god, it's a marathon. So it feels simultaneously too long and too short at the same time. But yeah, and I know even with Sourfang, Blizzard made like a master edit of all the Sourfang clips put together, and that was something like 25 or 30 minutes, and that's the size of a, that could be like a TV sitcom. So I think it would be cool to have these little mini series highlighting key parts in WoW's history.
The cinematics are really, really, really high quality. Maybe something like that would be too insane to put up as a series. But I think it would be appreciated even if it wasn't at that kind of level. Even if it's something a bit lower. I think it could still be really good just based on the stories.
Yeah, and it's when I see that both...
do you think it is to make a series like that?
Well, I mean, if something is in the works for Diablo and Overwatch, The Witcher got something, Castlevania got something, it's like, why can't...
get something.
Yeah, like, why can't WoW get something too? I mean, I feel like the Warcraft movie maybe spooked a lot of people, but it's like, well, there's still an audience for the stories, and even if you learn from the Reforged outcry, people were sad because they wanted those cutscenes and cinematics to look like a mini series. They didn't want it just to look like the old version with new models. Like they wanted the dynamic close-ups and perspective shifting. So it's like, people want to watch this story. So I think it would be interesting for them to try to do a mini series, and I think that also fits in well with WoW's current demographic. You have a lot of people that are getting older that will watch Netflix to unwind after work, or they'll make a weekend binging something, or they'll keep it on in the background as they're cooking. I think that a mini series for WoW would be pretty good. So I don't know.
I
I
agree.
mean, fingers crossed. Maybe if this works out for Diablo or and Overwatch, we could maybe see something like this for WoW. Because I think that the story with the war was not the right place to start. And I would be really excited to see something with Arthas or different parts of, Warcraft 3, or even, more recent expansions. Like Illidan's story is so jumbled. I think, like a series documenting Illidan, I think would be really cool.
Yeah, like putting it
Because they
together
had to
in a
make
miniseries.
yeah, like they had to do that quest line for him in Legion because nobody understood his story because we killed him in Burning Crusade, and then it's like, oh wait, he's back and he's the good guy now, and you should be
Yeah.
sympathetic towards him. So I think stuff like that would be pretty exciting, and you could have a lot of merchandise tie-ins with that, and it would have more staying power than a movie where it's like, oh, did it do well the first week? Oh, it didn't. Okay, let's forget about this.
Yeah.
And I think that the marketing can be targeted towards the fans. There's more freedom in a miniseries than there is with a movie where the movie was so ridiculous that the advertising was all wrong. They were trying to make it feel like a sports like I don't know, like a sports match appealing to sports fans. The fonts were really strange. And it was, I think that a lot of the things The Witcher did, having the like actors talk about like using swords or like how much they like the different characters, going more behind the scenes, spreading out the publicity, I think that worked a lot better. So hopefully WoW will get a second chance with a different story.
Yeah, I hope so too. I think the Arthur story would be more successful because sure, World of Warcraft is a lot of fancy, but for it to, I think, speak to more people, because you mentioned Witcher, and I think the Witcher itself is not human, and there's a lot of fancy things in there, a lot of different creatures that exist that are not real, but then you still have the relatable characters that are human, normal humans too. So maybe a bit more focus on maybe not that much orc would have been a little bit more interesting.
Right, or just like there was like too many characters at once, like you didn't know what was going on with the movie. And I mean, I know that the director has expressed frustration that there were scenes that were cut, and
that might
the
have
studio
controls
it, so he can't really release a director's cut. But I think that for audiences that are unfamiliar, it's easier to follow the story of one character that starts off good, and then based on his pride and almost caring too much about something, like his pride, his drive, his resolve, like that turns him evil. I think that's easier to follow than, okay, well, here's a bunch of orcs and they're the bad guys, but they're also, some of them are the good guys, but they're still trying to sack this city. And then here's some humans, and they're mostly good, but here's like a mage and he seems kind of creepy. Like there was too much going on. You couldn't really get attached to one character and follow their story because it was jumping around too much.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. I think,
and it would still be a complex
story.
Right. And it was like, I know they're trying to highlight, shades of gray, and like the orcs are, not evil, they're good, and humans have issues too. But I think that with Arthas, you still have a complicated story as this prince starts off trying to do the right thing, and then it gets really twisted by the end of it. And even characters like Illidan and Kael'thas make questionable decisions as well. It's not just the story of this one character is totally evil. You get to see their origin stories and a lot of tough decisions they had to make.
Yep.
So those are my thoughts, and I think that's about it for the show. Like I said, not a ton of news going on. There isn't even, going to PAX East, I think I know people at Blizzard are there, but I don't think there's any presentation going on. I checked, like I don't think there's a Blizzard demo booth or announcements like they've done in the past. So seems pretty quiet, like they're doing some stuff behind the scenes.
Yep. They do have the event as well, you said that they were at, right?
I know there was some like rumors about a Hearthstone event because people were
Oh.
like, I'm in like, you know, Anaheim now, traveling with
Oh.
the Blizzard person.
Okay.
But I don't think there's any like any event actually going on.
No.
At least that I don't know about. Just Blizzard people being like, "Hey, I'm here, like we should hang out." But I don't think there's any formal event on the horizon.
No.
Just a lot of people trolling, being like, "Oh my god, I went to an event yesterday." Just kidding.
Yeah. I see what you mean. Before we wrap things up, though, I'd like to quickly thank some subscribers. I did not note them all down, so if you guys can help me remember, I'd love to thank them all, including the people that were right before the stream as well. So we have, for example, Frimlin with the Twitch Prime sub. Thank you very, very much for that. We also had Lincoln and Tenno, both who subscribed right before the show, or rather right in the intro of the show. So thank you so much for that as well to both of you. I hope you guys are still here. There might have been one more. Actually, I think that might have been it. So
yeah,
got you guys.
Oh, Aegis said that he overslept, so we might have missed early subs. But it's okay. We appreciate all your hard work. For sure. Regardless.
Oh, Steven RS. That's Stevan, right? Or how do you pronounce it?
Stevan is usually it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you so much for the Prime sub. Oh, that's a whole year now. So now your rocket is
I should
purple.
So fun story about Stevan, actually, before we wrap up the show. So the Shadowlands alpha is, you know, encrypted, and Stevan, as a joke, was like, I'm gonna run this key to try to decrypt Shadowlands, and it's like the odds of decrypting it, like it would take like millions of years to decrypt it, so we just had this command line running. His channel got a 24-hour ban for streaming an unauthorized World of Warcraft game.
Really?
And he's like I mean, like, meanwhile people on Twitch are like, you know, trying to like show the client or like be like, oh, I'm fake installing it, and he's just like, I'm just like trolling running this, you know, command that will take like a million years to crack. But I guess because he's good at finding things, I don't know if Activision got spooked. They're like, oh no, he's gonna crack this, so they.
So he actually got banned for it, or was it a ban or just a shutdown?
He got a 24-hour ban.
Oh wow!
So.
Well, there you go, children. Do not try to hack the game, or it's not even hacking. Do not try to decrypt the game. Is it called decrypt?
Yeah, do not run a script that will take a million years to finish running.
Yes, even if the odds are it'll take a million years, no chances taken, okay? Don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do this at home. I hope he put that in his title. Before he was banned.
So he is a real Twitch streamer now, getting everyone's attention.
Yeah. Not even I had a ban ever. You're more experienced than I am.
It's funny because, like, you know, there's like Twitter accounts that announce when people's bans are lifted.
Yes.
It's like, Steven has been like unbanned from Twitch after 24 hours. And we're just like, oh god.
I hope you retweeted it.
Yeah, no, he had fun with it. We do have plans for data mining or streaming, you know, if we get in whenever stuff goes up, but we won't be streaming command lines. We just have some, it'll be like our past streams where we, you know, show off models or, data mining. You know, like if the alpha comes up, we'll like read abilities, you know, like new talents and stuff. But yeah, fortunately that was not on the Wowhead channel.
Oh yeah, that would have been awkward.
Yeah. Wowhead gets special access to unauthorized Shadowlands.
Oh my god. Wowhead just got banned.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that would be a nice article.
That feels more hype, like, oh, you know, like, Wowhead doesn't even have access, but they managed, you know, to get, like, a ban, like, you know, they were about to find something. Look, now this is building hype.
True, actually. True. You know, you would help Blizzard get exposure there by sacrificing yourself for 24 hours.
Exactly. But yeah, so I think thank you for the sub, Steven, now that you are unbanned and can give your Twitch Prime. We really appreciate it. Yep. And yeah, I think that's about it for this week's show.
Indeed. Thank you all for hanging out, supporting, being a part of these live shows. These shows are indeed live, although you might be watching this on YouTube right now. We have these shows live every Thursday on Twitch, Wowhead's official channel. And after the show, we put it together and upload it to YouTube for people who may have missed the show or who may want to go back to listen to specific things or specific parts of it. So we do that all the time. Perk, where did you get the Wowhead rocket behind you is a question in chat.
This one? Because I have two. 1 second.
That's the one that's visible, yes.
Yeah. We actually made those, and you can buy them on the Wowhead shop or redeem your nether shards, which you accrue if you're watching chat. Yeah, they're still available.
Nice. Yeah, well, there you go.
SAS moved production of them along, and yeah, it's awesome. It's cool. Yeah. I think you have one, Annie, right?
I do have one, yes. I need to take a picture with Maya on it.
Yeah,
I remember having a really good picture with Luna on it.
Or like both of them can be like grabbing different ends.
It's so hard to get pictures with both of them. They always end up blurry, but I'll try. But yeah, that's a very good point to mention the nether shard. So as you're watching the show on Twitch, when the show is live, even if you're not speaking in chat, that's okay. You just have to be logged in. You get points for just sitting in chat, and you can use these points to redeem actual real physical things, such as the Wowhead rocket. So if you scroll down, you can see a little thing that says store items and then Wowhead plushie, and you can click there to redeem once you have enough points. And there's other things on there too, such as pins as well. And I don't remember what else.
You can get premium as well. Sure. No ads on the site.
Yeah. For no ads on the Wowhead pages.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good thing to point out right in the last seconds. Yeah, we'll be back next week, same time, hopefully with more new things to talk about, and maybe we'll even have a bit more insight on Shadowlands Alpha by then. We'll see.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Yeah.
And yeah, until next time. Thanks, Perk.
Yeah, I think we're ready for the high five.
Yes, yes.
All right. So, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, we did it.
Hey.
Perfect high five. If you want to do high five too, I'm going to teach you guys a very, very secret trick. You hold both your hands up and do that. How about that? Did you know you can high five yourself? All right, enough cringiness. We'll see you all next week, same time.
See you guys. Bye-bye. Have a great weekend.
Yes, have a great weekend, and thank you for all the support. Bye-bye.
Bye.